Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Joe Tossi from TechTables.com, and you're listening to the Public Sector Show by TechTables. This podcast features human-centric stories from public sector CIOs, CISOs, and technology leaders across federal, state, city, county, and higher education. You'll gain valuable insights into current issues and challenges faced by top leaders. Through interviews, speaking engagements, live podcast tour events, we offer you a behind-the-mic look at the opportunities top leaders are seeing today. And to make sure you never miss an episode, head over to Spotify and Apple Podcasts and hit that follow button and leave a quick rating. Just tap the number of stars that you think this show deserves. Today, I'm excited. We have Will Smith, Chief of Staff for the City of Seattle IT. Will, welcome to the Public Sector Show by TechTables.
Thank you, Joe. Happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
I think you're the flyest person in Seattle.
No.
Ha, seriously, look at that, right?
Far from it. That's my family.
So for those who don't know you, quick intro.
Chief of Staff for the City of Seattle IT, as you said. Been with the city for 6 years. Started off my career with the city as senior HR manager and was promoted to director of HR. And then about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, promoted to chief of staff. Had majority of my professional career in human resources. So I have 20 plus years in HR. I think what makes my career interesting and what I've valued the most is that I've had every position within HR. So I've been a recruiter, I've been a benefits specialist, I've been a retirement specialist, had the opportunity to be an HR manager in several places. And I've taken a lot from those experiences and has shaped how I see not only life, but how HR leaders should operate in any organization.
So this is pretty interesting. I want to unpack where you are today. All those past experiences have really shaped. Being able to touch the different parts of the organization, I imagine, has had to be like really powerful for you.
It was, and it has been. It's made me into a better leader. It allows me to see a perspective from the shoes of individuals that were in the roles that I was in before. And it helps me make the decisions. How would it show up in their life? And how would they perform in a way that best puts them in the best possible light? I've learned a lot from the failures as well. I think often people like to discuss the things in which they've won in, but I think the failures and things that I haven't performed the best in has also shaped how I show up today.
So before we get to today's episode premise, give us a little bit of background on Will. Help us understand you a little bit better.
Yeah, some people may consider me complex. I love life. I love life. I value people. I love my family. I come from a pretty big family. I was sharing with Rob a few days ago that my grandmother and grandfather, they had 12 kids, and they were born in Little Rock, Arkansas, in a two-bedroom home. And so my family comes from humble beginnings. And as my mom and a couple of my other aunts and uncles, when they got to an age where they could fend for themselves, they started to migrate to Seattle. And once they gained employment here in Seattle, they started sending back for their brothers and sisters and building a structure, and then eventually bringing my grandfather and grandmother back to Seattle, where they ultimately passed, rest in peace. But I'm a family guy. I have a 25-year-old son. He plays professional basketball in Greece, and watching him grow into the young man that he is today was something that also kept me motivated. I'm big on education. I have a bachelor's in information technology, and then I have my master's from Tulane Law School in labor and employment law. And I'm currently working on my doctorate in organizational industrial psychology, basically studying the framework of how organizations work from a people side, from a psychological perspective, but also systems.
Okay, wow, you just dropped so much there, because you or Rob texted me the title of for the premise of this episode.
Yeah.
But now having even more context of why this is even happening, because this makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So the nickname we had for you, I think it was maybe Rob, was like, hey, we call Will the mayor, right? which is a funny joke. When you finish your doctorate, I'm gonna call you the professor. You can go from the mayor to the professor. Okay, so let's go a little bit deeper on this. So you get how much more time do you have left on your doctorate? What's that looking like?
That's interesting. I was just talking to my board chair about that a couple of days ago, and it depends on how much time I put into my research. 20 to 25 hours a week is what is said you should work in order to complete your dissertation. So if I use that calculation, I should be done by this time next year. But that is dependent upon my population of study. That's dependent upon what they call the quality assurance folks that say, okay, your dissertation is good enough to be published, if they're okay with that. So there's other factors outside of me getting the work done. However, if all goes well, I would say about in a year to 2 months or so.
Okay. What was texted to me was how tech organizations can design a workforce of the future on the people side. So going to what you're studying right now, people, systems, organizations, these are all very complex, right? The moment that you start getting humans involved, things become real, right? So curious, what are some of the things that have attracted you? Like, why are you so interested that you're like, hey, I decided I'm going to spend 25 hours a week outside of work pursuing this?
Because I feel that anything in life, in organizations, if you can understand the why, it can be solved. And sometimes understanding that why, a little bit more time than others. But you have to have the patience in order to understand it fully. In regards to organizations, they're complex things, and particularly in tech. When you're working in tech organizations, at least the experiences that I've had, from an HR lens, the people side, I think often there's this idea that HR folks may not know or understand the tech side of the business. Maybe not as well as the subject matter experts, but I think it's imperative for HR leaders, regardless of what role you play in the organization, you have to understand the business. You have to be able to understand the business that you support. And so in order to do that, you have to ask a lot of questions, spend time with those leaders. You have to read, you have to educate yourself to see how that applies to your business. And so that's why this particular topic is important, because understanding the people side of it comes first. Then it's also understanding the mindset. Part of the work that we are doing right now and what some of my personal research is connected to is around the understanding of growth and fixed mindset. Growth and fixed mindset is a term that was coined by a philosopher by the name of Carol Dweck. She's a professor at Stanford University. And her study early on was centered around how do children learn? And her thought was that if you put kids in any environment, that you can almost shape how they are going to learn and what they can pick up. If you allow an individual or person or child to say, I can't do this, then you're having a fixed mindset about that particular thing, that there's a number of different things that can prevent them from learning. The same thing happens in organizations. If you tell yourself this cannot be fixed, then you have a high chance of it not being fixed. But if you enter it with the mindset that it can be fixed, you're going to find a way to get it fixed. And so that's the premise of creating or diving towards a culture that you can change and an organization that you can support, is understanding the mindset.
Okay, so there's a lot there that is really good. So I love the growth and fixed mindset, super important. Actually, there's a guy I introduced you and Rob to, Gary Brantley. At the time when he was the CIO for the city of Atlanta, he inherited a team. And one of the things that he told me on the podcast was that they had a big ransomware attack. And one of the things he explained to me was that, hey, Joe, a lot of these, they are great people here in the organization. They don't know what winning looks like. Yeah. And so I thought about it, and it's funny, coaching high school basketball, there's so many similarities. Until you know what winning looks like, you might settle for mediocrity.
Absolutely.
And when you go into different environments, sometimes it can feel like, hey, this person's rubbing me the wrong way. But the person might just have a different experience where they're, I'm going to use basketball, pushing the ball up the court. And we see this with the kind of JV varsity team. They run the same plays. It's just that varsity pushes the ball so much faster. And I thought that was such an interesting dynamic of just trying to get the whole team to buy in, because then you get into some kids are like, hey, on the JV team, this is how we did it. You're like, welcome to varsity. Or there's welcome to college. Welcome to Greece. This is just a different level every time. And yeah, I think deconstructing that mindset and then understanding people, their why, like that was there are some stuff where it's just intangible. You can't teach or coach like this person's hungry, right? Like they're motivated, but you can't understand, where they come from, and maybe you can move someone into a different seat to try and help them be successful.
Yeah, sometimes you're in the wrong spot.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that you don't have the necessary skills to be successful. It's maybe that particular thing you may need to build your skill set up, and that you're more better suited in another spot for that period of time.
Yep.
So absolutely, I understand that completely.
Yeah. No, yeah, there's a lot. And I love what you said about like the HR leaders going across from, you're not just doing HR, like you got to understand the business side, and then you can understand how executive leadership views the whole, right?
Yep. So one of the things that I spearheaded at Seattle IT is changing our model from the idea of human resources. Yes, we are human resources. However, we are business partners to the organization. And we transformed the naming of our HR team to HRBPs, Human Resources Business Partners. And each of those business partners are responsible for aligning themselves with the business that they are assigned to. So for instance, we had Greg Smith here, our CISO, earlier. And he has a dedicated human resources business partner. The responsibility of Greg's HRBP is to understand Greg's business with the idea of possibly understanding it as well as he does. That's the goal. So you can be able to have those strategic conversations with your director. You can give them ideas on how something might be moved or shaped in order to fit the bigger picture. So you become more valuable, not only to the person that you're supporting in terms of your HR business, but the organization as a whole. Because if we're all doing it, we're also saving the organization money.
Yeah, I know. I like that. The HR business partners. Yeah, that's a great term. Also, I like it because they get out of the traditional, like when I think of HR, it's like paperwork.
Sure.
And you're like, yeah, 100%. And so you get into that human aspect.
Yeah, and it's not that. That's a piece of it. The evolution of HR, right? It was known at one point as the personnel office. And then they got creative and started using terminology of human resources. And then the concept of the human resources business partner came to play. Now they're talking about human capital. And I'm not a huge fan of that terminology for a few reasons. But again, the field of HR is evolving. And people understand that it's a lot more than just processing quote unquote paperwork.
Okay, so this gives us a good foundation. Now, let's think about the future. You've been moving up in the city of Seattle. Now the chief of staff for the city of Seattle IT. What's your vision for this organization?
Yeah, so
in light of Mr. Rob Lloyd coming in he's been here like a hot month, right? If that.
But it's important for my seat to be aligned with the CTO. But I also have to sit in the spot where I'm neutral, because I have to be able to give guidance and support to Rob in a way that he can hear it, but also have his initiatives met, not only for his personal initiatives, but also initiatives of the city that I'm sure the mayor has given him, right? So understanding and being aligned with that, but also pushing forward what it is that the organization is set to do. So I have some bigger goals, but we have some smaller goals right now. Right now, we are culture driven. Okay, so when we talk about creating our workforce, a huge part of that is establishing our culture. And in our organization, in Seattle IT, we've had different leaders in Rob's current seat that he's in. So understanding people, that could cause some trauma, that could cause a level of how long is Rob going to be in this seat. So
This guy from California just moved here.
who is he? All of those things. And you have to understand the emotional state and psychological space of a person. We like to talk about psychological safety a lot in our organization. And that is key. Being intentional about how you're going to create your culture is very important. Last year, actually 2 years ago, we really started to focus on our culture. We identified a vendor that we worked with, and we worked with them for about a year and a half. And we created a whole bunch of different systems as to how we were going to move the work forward. They did a lot of great work with us. One of the things that they left that we took a hold of was creating a from to state. And basically what that means is, what is our future state? But do we get to the future state? For instance, we said we want to go from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. We said we want to go from unclear direction to clear direction with the ability to make decisions. So we have a future state in mind, but also knowing where we are at currently. And a part of that intentionality in terms of culture building is just not one person carrying that message. Everyone in the organization needs to carry that message, and it starts from the top. So leadership not only has to share the message, but we also have to walk it. That's important. So being intentional is key in creating a workforce that for the future that you're looking to create.
Yeah. I think anytime I've seen this every basketball season, there's going to be conflict, right? Egos are going to butt heads, just other dynamics. People are just not reading each other. I see all the time, or a kid makes a pass and it's like you're supposed to be going back door. You're not there.
You don't know the play? What's going on?
Yeah. So people can get frustrated. How do you go about handling conflict in the city of Seattle?
Yeah, I think it's...
Or in organizations at large?
Yeah, it can be tough sometimes, depending on what the conflict is. I think people have personal views that they have with a particular issue. They want to make sure that their agenda is shared. I think the key for me and my team is being able to put and identify your biases. People are naturally biased. And if you can identify those biases, you are able to say, okay, I can enter into a conversation with a clear mindset to fairly get through it. Now, maybe some of the outcomes or the resolutions may not be to your liking at the time, but sometimes you have to be able to lose in the temporary to win in the bigger picture scheme of things. So it's less about winning and losing, but establishing a strong relationship. And if you're more focused on establishing strong relationships, the times when you don't get your way, it's not going to matter because you're more connected and you respect that relationship that you have with that person more than anything. And that's my mindset.
Like marriage.
I'm not married, but I get it.
The premise being is that I might not 100% agree with everything. You're going to look at the larger picture and
what's more important?
100%. So maybe it's not like marriage in the sense of like, I love you. You get the point. So as you think about Rob just came in and addressing the changes within the organization,
Sure.
The mayor obviously has his game plan that he's running. Since he played football, I can use all the sports analogies I want. Right now, as you look to the end of this year, to the end of next year, for someone in your role, what are some of the most important priorities that you're looking for to make this organization win?
Definitely, I want our people to feel empowered. We are embarking on a lot of different changes in our organization. I want our people to be able to see themselves in those changes. I want them to be able to see where they fit. I want them to see how their work is valued and how they are respected as people. So it is our job as a leadership team to make sure that message is carried forward. And so as we continue down this journey, again, Rob is still fairly new. With any leader, he's going to want to change some things probably, right? How do we support that? How do we get our people ready to be change ready? So that's effective communication. That's allowing space for them to disagree. That's being able to tell them the truth about things, even though it may upset them in some spaces, depending on what it is.
What did Rob say that Mayor Harrell, what was it? You just said on the last podcast, Rob, about you step on the scale and you don't like the... Yeah.
That's absolutely right. Give you a very real example. We are transitioning to 3 days in the office. It may be a shock to many in our organization. There are people in our organization that we're still going to work 5 days a week. So we have to be intentional and understand the landscape of our organization, that although it may impact some, but it doesn't impact all the same. But having a great space for all perspectives to be heard. Now, we may not be able to give them everything that they want all the time, but we do owe it to them to be open and to be clear about the changes that we are looking to make.
And leadership at the top is going to make those changes, and then communicating it in a way. And
communication is key. Communication is key, and being clear about what those changes are so people can see for themselves where do they fit in this situation. So we owe it to our employees to do that.
I love it. This has been a fantastic conversation. Hey, Rob, you think I should start like a HR TechTables podcast? What do you think about that?
I think there's 3 themes with people. It's intergenerational. So you have a digital workforce and digital public. How IT helps organizations work in that context heading forward. Finding your people, finding your information, working together, collaborating. It's a whole new context. And that's a whole body of work for the next 3-4 years.
This has been an awesome conversation. I'm looking forward to seeing you again early next month.
Yeah, we're excited about that.
Seattle Learning Conference. Honestly, this one won't be out by the time that happens, but if you want to tell the camera a little pitch about the Seattle Learning Conference, this is your baby.
Yeah, it's something that we have really grown to love in Seattle IT. We call it the Seattle IT Learning Conference. We started it maybe 4 years ago. Predecessor of Rob's there. It was his idea. He said, we'll go ahead and make this happen. Okay. And we created it to what it is now. And so this year, it's going to be 2 days, September 9th and 10th, where we have, the idea of the conference is to bring employees together, provide them a space where they're able to break down silos. They get to see their colleagues that they may not see on a daily, but also learn about particular things that we're talking about in that particular time. So we are talking about transforming and creating our workforce in a way that is inclusive to everyone. So we have some speakers coming from New York, and we have someone coming from the state of Oregon. So it's going to be very exciting. Hopefully the mayor comes and gives an opening. We'll have some food for people to eat on. So it's going to be a good event. It's a little bit of learning. It's a little bit building some collaboration with your colleagues, and just fun and learning.
Fun and learning. And you got this guy from California coming, I heard.
Yeah, this guy named Joe. I don't know. I heard he's a good guy. We're going to be podcasted out. So that's exciting.
He's a 35-year-old smiley male. Is that what it was? Something like that? With glasses, that's right. Yeah.
He asked some really good questions, so he might be okay.
I'm looking forward to it. Thank you for coming on the Public Sector Show by TechTables.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for the time.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Joe Tossi from TechTables.com, and you're listening to the Public Sector Show by TechTables. This podcast features human-centric stories from public sector CIOs, CISOs, and technology leaders across federal, state, city, county, and higher education. You'll gain valuable insights into current issues and challenges faced by top leaders. Through interviews, speaking engagements, live podcast tour events, we offer you a behind-the-mic look at the opportunities top leaders are seeing today. And to make sure you never miss an episode, head over to Spotify and Apple Podcasts and hit that follow button and leave a quick rating. Just tap the number of stars that you think this show deserves.